A 2-7 start has caused tension in Sacramento's locker room, once again sending the team into controversy involving Demarcus Cousins and George Karl. A report Wednesday from the Big Lead suggested Kings GM Vlade Divac is already contemplating a coaching change, asking his players if he should fire him. Demarcus Cousins issued an apology to Yahoo Sports and ESPN.com for his expletive-laden outburst toward Karl after the Kings lost to the Spurs on Monday. Stephen A., break this down for us. What's going on here?
Well, what's going on is that George Karl doesn't have the level of control of this team that he should have. And I say that begrudgingly. I take no pleasure in saying that, Skip. George Karl used to work here at ESPN with us. George Karl coached in the NBA for many years in Seattle and Denver. I know him. I've got a lot of love for him. I think he's an exceptional basketball coach. But I think this particular situation, particularly in the aftermath of his battles with cancer, the fact that he's aging to some degree, all of those things being considered, it would have been better for him to have a more experienced and accomplished team, at least to some degree, because he knows what to do with guys who are consummate professionals as opposed to individuals who are really good guys, a little bit different, but learning as we go along. Somebody like Rudy Gay, for example, is a really good guy and a very good player, averaging 17 points a game, dropped 25 last night in their win against Detroit, ending a 6-game losing streak. But, you know, you don't look at him and see a leader. You look at him and see a good player who's a consummate professional. You look at Demarcus Cousins, I think he's the best big man in the game. And I think that he gets a bad rap in terms of being a bad guy because he's not. But he does come across as a bit sensitive at times. He wears things on his sleeve to a lesser degree. He speaks his mind, and sometimes he loses his temper. And that's going to be difficult for some people to accept. Rondo comes in there. He's got a triple-double last night, played 48 minutes for the second straight game because Darren Collison and Seth Curry have been out, and they haven't been there to spell for him, and he put forth a triple-double, and that was great to see. But at the same time, we know that Rondo has had his issues and are you in a position to really lead? That's the question. And so when you have so many questions, your coach has to be able to step in and be the kind of guy that not just has the message, but that has the cachet and the presentation skills to deliver it in a way to you that will galvanize the troops and motivate them to really just squeeze every measure of potential out of themselves. I don't think at this stage of his career that that's where George Karl is. So do I think he should be let go now? Probably not. Because in this 6-game losing streak, who did they lose to? Memphis and the Clippers and Houston and Golden State and San Antonio. And Phoenix, you were supposed to lose to them because they're better than you. The flip side to it, however, is that even though I wouldn't say that George Karl needs to be let go now, a legitimate argument could be made that he should have been let go before this season even began, because we heard about how bad the relationship was with Demarcus Cousins and himself. And the fact that it's this early in the season and you have to have a players-only meeting, then a meeting that includes everybody, then Demarcus Cousins going off in a profanity-laced tirade before turning around and apologizing to everybody and saying he'll be the scapegoat to all of this stuff going on. If it were anyone else, we'd be saying there's a lack of institutional control here. Somebody needs to stir this ship in the right direction. Somebody needs to be the leader. And as great as I think Demarcus Cousins is, he's too young, too inexperienced, and too emotionally volatile at this moment in his career to put that pressure on his shoulders. He has to have somebody to alleviate that. And in this case, it's supposed to be the coach, but it's not. So you might have no choice but to move in a different direction if you're Vlade. But the point is, it probably should have been done before you were 8 games into the season, 9 games into the season.
Yep. Unfortunately, I agree with you. I've known George Karl for a long, long time. I still say of the current NBA coaches, I'll put his basketball acumen in the top 5. He really, really knows the game. Does he know today's players? Has he lost a little touch? I don't know. But now to Demarcus Cousins. I'm a big fan. I've gotten to know him a little bit. I pushed for him before that draft. I thought he should have gone number 1 over his teammate John Wall. Stand by that. And I agree with you, Stephen A. DeMarcus still has some problems as he continues to grow up in controlling, channeling his emotions. He lets them run amok on him sometimes. If you want to call it temper or just getting over emotional about any and every little thing, I'll give you that. But I got to tell you, I'm on DeMarcus's side here because George Karl burned that bridge 3 months into the job last year. Remember what happened? He took over in February. Then there was a report by our Mark Stein about 3 months in. George wanted to trade DeMarcus Cousins. And it took the owner and Vlade putting a stop to it to keep DeMarcus in a Kings uniform. Well, I'm not saying George is right or wrong, but I'm a big fan of DeMarcus's. I get he can be a little tough to coach, maybe a little tough sometimes to play with. But I'll tell you what, in the end, in this day and age, right here, right now, DeMarcus is more valuable to that franchise than George is. It's as simple as that. And once you burn that bridge last year and you send a message, even though you don't hate him, that you don't really want him on your team and in your locker room, well, the friction is just going to ebb and flow. It's always going to be an undertow of friction between the star of the team and the coach of the team. And I'm sorry, but George, the story got out there. I know DeMarcus knew all about it. Boy, the bridge it was at least on fire. I think it burned to the ground. But this is just part and parcel. This is the fallout of wanting to trade DeMarcus Cousins.
You're probably right. The fact is that they got to make a decision because Skip, DeMarcus Cousins, he's got 2 years left on this deal after this season. You're going to have to make a decision because what you don't want to do, what the danger is with DeMarcus Cousins, you don't want to get him to a point where he completely gives up and says, I don't want to be here.
Yep.
You don't want that, okay? And you're right. He is more valuable. I'm going to repeat this. DeMarcus Cousins is the best big man in basketball.
Sure.
This brother walks around averaging 20 and 24 and 12. He's that legit. And now he's added a three-point shot to his repertoire, okay? So you got to this is one of those situations where you have to find somebody, we talk like you got to find somebody to manage him. You got to find somebody that knows how to manage the rest of the team while coaching him. Yeah. DeMarcus Cousins ain't the kind of dude that wants to be managed. Because when you say you want to be managed, you're giving the impression that he has a problem. His ultimate problem is losing or feeling betrayed.
Yep.
And whether it's right or wrong in terms of factual as it pertains to George Karl, there is no doubt that DeMarcus Cousins felt betrayed. So if he felt betrayed and he doesn't hide his emotions very well, that's going to be a problem. But then when you couple that by not having the pieces around him to make sure that that's offset by winning, you've made matters worse. And that's what's going on in Sacramento. They're not a very good team, but they got a big-time big man. And so you got a big-time big man, but you haven't surrounded them with the requisite personnel to be a very good team, and you got a coach he feels betrayed them, not to mention that same coach is a coach who just refused 24 hours ago, if not earlier, to answer the questions as to whether or not he wanted to get DeMarcus Cousins traded. So you got all of this going on. And DeMarcus Cousins is the kind of dude that's like, bump this. I ain't taking this. I'm not having it.
Right.
And this is not Kentucky. You can't do something about it. In Kentucky, Calipari was the man.
Yeah.
This is pro basketball. He's getting paid $60 million. Okay, even though he deserves more, by the way. He's getting paid $15 million next year, $16 million the next year after. Let me be clear, DeMarcus Cousins is underpaid because he's that bad, meaning good.
Yeah.
But something has to be figured out here. You got to figure this out before DeMarcus Cousins gets to a point where he says, I don't want to be in Sacramento anymore, because he's the kind of personality, if he gets to that point, ain't no turning him around.
Okay, I hear you. And look, bottom line here for me, I do not want to come across as defending DeMarcus over his profanity-laced tirade directed at his head coach after a loss to my Spurs. But I got to tell you,
absolutely not.
The kid's heart is in the right place. Some kids just want to be a star, and they don't really care about the winning. If it comes, that's fine.
He wants to win.
This kid really, really badly, like crazily, wants to win. Love that about him. And again, if with the right connection, with the right coach channeling that in the right direction, good things will happen.
And to recap,
well, let's make sure.
I'm sorry, Stephen A. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, let's make sure, Skip, we understand something here. The cussing out might not be a product of the 6-game losing streak.
Yep.
The cussing out might be a product of, I never got over what you did.
I agree.
Or what you say. And Demarcus Cousins is one of those people. You know how your hair stands up on your skin and you feel your skin crawling when somebody's talking behind your back?
Yep.
We don't know whether it's true or not. But that's what Demarcus Cousins believes about George Karl.
Right.
That has to change or George Karl has to go.
You
and
got
at this point, you both believe Demarcus Cousins is more valuable to the organization than George Karl. Yeah. The Kings will be looking for their third win of the season when they host the Nets. That's on Friday. Floyd Mayweather doesn't think Ronda Rousey is very valuable to boxing. He speaks out again, but what did the undefeated star say?